Pathfinder Pawns by Paizo, the Dungeon Decor set. This is my review. My goal here is to tell you why I purchased this product and hopefully to take you off the fence if you're not sure whether you should save your money or go right out and purchase this thing. So let's take a look inside the box. What do you get? I keep saying box, but it's just a flimsy sort of folded piece of paper. And I keep it because on the back side it has a list of all the pieces and the quantities of them. But you're going to need to find some other storage mechanism. Now, because they're just cardboard tiles, they're easily transportable. You can throw them in your dice bag. I've got some Pathfinder pawn boxes that are empty, so I just throw them inside of there. They're going to be coming in on these punch sheets. Those are really high quality. As you punch them out, you'll notice that the artwork is all on the pieces that you'll be using, which is really good. I've had some really cheap board game components in some other board games that I own, and in some of those, sometimes you'll punch out that shield token, and you'll notice that half of the shield gets left on the cardboard sheet. So these are really well done. They're well centered. You don't feel like you're wasting any of the art or the ink. So you'll punch these sheets out. Of course, you'll throw those cardboard sheets away. You don't need those. And there's nothing else to it. You don't get any of the bases. And what I mean by bases is there's these little black bases that are common and used in all the Pathfinder pawn line of miniatures and terrain pieces. Now, I own the Bestiary box, the NPC Codex box, and the Monster Codex of Pathfinder pawns, which comes with bases already. But you can get on Amazon for like $9.95 a package of just bases, and those will be good to have with this Dungeon Decor tile set. So you do not get bases with it, but you get, for $25, I think 228 total tiles, which is really good. And as I said, there's no way to store them, so just find a way to, you can throw them in a little box, though. They stack very easily. So that's what you get with the packaging. Really high quality, super durable stuff as well. They're cardstock. If you're familiar with the Pathfinder pawns, it's the exact same thing. We're not talking about heavy printer paper that's been laminated. I mean, we're talking real cardboard level stuff. If you put them inside of bases, you can hold up some weight. So unless you spill liquid on them or you're actively trying to mess them up and destroy them, they're going to last forever. They're really durable. So really good. Now, the tiles themselves, beautiful artwork. It doesn't look like, let's say, the grass. Someone just went outside and took a picture of grass. It looks more like Dungeony terrain and map building terrain. So it's really good. It has a little bit of that. It's not pixelated in any way, and it doesn't look like a video game, but it definitely looks like wargaming, tabletop gaming space type terrain. The doors look like they would fit versus someone just took a picture of a plank of wood. So really cool as far as the art and aesthetics go. And as I said, once you punch them out, it's clean. Everything's well centered. It doesn't feel like you're missing half of a picture. The tiles themselves, I was a little concerned when I went to the store and bought them because I've heard, and I believe it may be the same line, so Pathfinder and pawn tile sets, where they had double sides, so two sides and two different images, which was cool because you felt like you were getting a lot of variety. The problem was there were these big fat labels on them, like someone photoshopped a square border of white or black and then put text on it. So when you lay them out onto your battlefield, you'll notice that all you're seeing is just a bunch of font. These tiles are really cool. They are double-sided, but they have the exact same picture. On one side is the label, which is good if you need to, if it's a picture that's maybe a little more vague and you want to leave it on the battle mat that way. But also when I'm digging through the box, I can easily identify what I'm looking for. But then the flip side is the exact same image. Again, beautiful artwork and all that stuff, but there's no label. It's just clean. So when they're laid out on the battle mat, it just looks good aesthetically. Okay? So you get really good quality, really durable. You get a bunch of them for $25. And they're double-sided, and one side has no label on it, which is really good, so it makes for a real clean visual. For the last bit here, I've already told you what you get, the value of it all. Really good. I strongly recommend you go out and purchase these. But I want to just tell you a few reasons why I did personally. So I'm a dungeon master for 10 players in 5th edition D&D. So first off, doesn't matter that it says Pathfinder, it's going to be compatible with just about any edition. They're just chits that you can put on your battle mat to indicate and show what's what and what's where. As I said in the beginning, they're 1 inch by 1 inch, 2 inch by 2 inch squares, rectangles, things of that nature. So they fit within the grid combat system. Now, I've gone to gridless. I have just cool terrain that I use, and similar to using the non-labeled side of these tiles, I like just the clean visual and the clean aesthetic of not having mechanics get in the way of me trying to convey just an overall aesthetic. So I build my own terrain. I try and tell the best stories that I can through gameplay, but once we get into initiative-based timing and combat, I want to try and convey and show cool epic as well. So I make my own terrain. I can't afford all the Dwarven Forge I'd ever want. And besides that fact, I don't know where I'm going to go all the time, and who's going to have every piece unless you bought the entire Dwarven Forge library. So by crafting my own terrain out of foam and painting it, besides it appealing to the creative side of me as I just enjoy the process, I can kind of make what I want. That being said, with 10 players, I've got players around me everywhere. And combat is already a little unwieldy and it's slow because there's so many actions, so many people. If I have 10 players out there and I'm running 10 monsters, that's 20 miniatures, whether Pathfinder pawns or real Nolzurs or, little miniatures. If I have what you would see on Pinterest or Instagram, just this massive amount of visual, we're not creating dioramas and setups and demonstrations to put your toys on. This has to be a fluid, living, moving thing in combat. So the visuals might be good, but if I create a goblin hideout and I've got multiple layers of wood, and it doesn't matter how many popsicle sticks you used and what sort of wood stain you used and how crafted it is, line of sight's going to be broken. It's hard for a player to figure out what they need to do when they can't see everything that's going on the battlefield. That player over in the far corner now has a barrier of terrain, as good as it looks, even if it's Dwarven Forge. They have a barrier between me and them. And then it also, like old school, my perspective of theater of the mind, you're not leaving anything to the imagination at that point. You don't need to put up every wall and every hedge. You just need to give some suggestions. So tiles, for me, just offer me, especially at a cheap cost, another tool set, another thing that I can pull from that'll help and also give some contrast. So it doesn't clutter my table space, because you're going to have, you don't put out the entire forest, because as you move a miniature, you're going to hit a tree over with your elbow. And then every time you add that up, time after time, you got to pick up that tree. You got to lift up the roof to show what's inside the house, and blah, blah, blah. So the tiles help. And also with contrast, for example, let's say I use a Pathfinder pawn dragon. He's real important. It matters. But when I want an epic boss battle and I actually go out and I acquire a real miniature dragon, a pre-painted thing or otherwise, and I put him on the table, it stands out more. It's the reason why I use, well, besides money and time of painting all these miniatures, I use Pathfinder pawns for my monsters, 99% of them, and my players use actual miniatures. It makes the players stand out and look more epic immediately on the table. When I want to have a situation where there's a pillar, 4 pillars, let's say, surrounding fire, and this is actual 3D, sculpted out of foam terrain, painted, that stuff stands out because I'm trying to indicate and show to my players that something is going on with that fire, that's a portal to the elemental plane of fire. But I still want to convey that there's hot spots on the mat that I want my players to stay away from, otherwise they're going to take D6 fire damage or something. So I can use these dungeon tiles to complement and put them out onto the mat, these little flame tokens. That's a lot better than me just drawing a red dot with a dry erase, and it's also better than me just putting a red D6 out there. Because if I'm using D6s for that, but also for the orcs, you see where I'm going? But yet, by having the little flame chits out there, players know that's fire, but it doesn't have the same importance as the actual 3D structure. So you can start to piece together a little bit of 2D terrain with 3D terrain, and these tiles just complement that. In addition, again, unless you bought the entire collection of Dwarven Forge or you've crafted everything possible, you may not have the variety. These things are really good for random encounters and for things on the fly where I just need to pull in a quick tree or a quick tree stump, or maybe I did and spent all the time on this amazing Curse of Strahd Dracula Gothic castle with everything, architecturally fully detailed, reference off of something, but I forgot to make enough coffins. I've got a couple of coffins real quick. And gravestones. The gravestones may not be an undead encounter. So I don't want that to be the center of attention. I want my Gothic castle to be the attention. But the gravestones are there, and they don't conflict. They don't clash with the attention that I'm trying to draw in. But I'm also not just putting black D6s for gravestones, because that can start to lose some of the overall aesthetic. So these dungeon tiles are super good, super worthwhile. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. I hope I've helped you in making a more informed decision as to whether this is a purchase that you should look into. So thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you guys later.